took them right down to the wire. I run the picket fence on them, and we won. And my son, he's on...
How you doing, Dad?
He's a conquering hero. I heard the game right there on that little Philco, and I heard old Ollie dribble on his foot and make that charity shot, and I started bawling, and they bring the white coats in here, and they put a jacket on me. I was feeling so good I didn't even mind too much.
You doing good?
Well, I feel real empty inside. And I have some bad visions. Son, the other night.
No, that don't matter, Dad. You're gonna get better. Couple of months when you get out of here, we're gonna get a house. Both of us. I love you, Dad. I gotta get back.
Son. Oh, I wish I could be there.
I'll be thinking of you.
Son, keep their bud. Anyway, I'll tell you one thing. No school as small as ever been in the state championship.
David, how are you?
Hey, Darek, what's going on, man? How are
David,
you?
I'm doing great. I, when I reached out to you, I'm like, we just spoke, so I don't know if he's going to want to speak to me so soon. It's been 2 years. I'm like, how did that go by that quick?
I know, right? Yeah, I know a lot of people. There's a lot of interest after Gene died. I got a lot of texts from people, so
Yeah.
I've seen, I'm going to make an announcement here, Darek.
Yeah.
This is going to be the last time that I ever publicly speak about Hoosiers. It's coming up on 40 years. I'm an old guy now, and I won't say pass the baton because they already have it, but Steve Holler and Brad Long are the guys that love to do all this kind of stuff. So they'll be carrying the torch. Most of the other guys are like me, like we'll show up if you pay us to sign an autograph.
Yeah. Well, I hope I didn't make you.
I said, yeah, Darek. I said yes before I really thought about it because I wasn't going to speak, and then I thought this guy's such a nice guy, and he works so hard to try and get his podcast together, and he's so passionate about movies and television. Like, why wouldn't I want to help? I'm just your average everyday schmo who was lucky and got in a movie that people still talk about.
Yeah, people still love. I did want to say something not related to acting or anything. I'm really bad with social media and Instagram, and I caught up on some of yours. I'm so sorry that your mom passed away last year. It's almost coming up on a year. I just wanted to say I'm sorry about your mom passing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was kind of sudden. She was undergoing chemotherapy, and she was 88, and she was doing fine, and then all of a sudden her body did not like the chemo, and she passed away very quickly. So in that sense, she didn't suffer, and it was good. But yeah, it's hard. That's my father had passed away, and now my mother. So it's definitely a different experience, right? When you lose your parent, because they're always your parent, even when they're 88, and even when you're taking care of them, that's still your mom who, spanked you and did all the stuff to raise you. So yeah, it's hard. Thank you.
Yeah. So what are you doing with yourself these days? It looks like from Instagram, you're enjoying life, you're enjoying your family, which is so awesome. Just whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I have had a property management company since 2009, so 16 years. And that's been very successful. I'm good at it. It's coming to the end of its useful life. I'm 62, going to be 63 at the end of this year. So my plan is I'm training someone to sort of take the reins from me in 3 years when I'm 65, or 2.5 years. And I'm involved in different projects. I always like to help people. That's how I was raised. If you have the ability to help, do it. Don't ask, don't make a fuss, do it. So the 2 projects that I'm currently working on are, and you can check him out on Instagram, fascinating guy, a former Green Beret, Ryan Hendrickson, who is teaching the Ukrainians how to remove. Ukraine is the most heavily landmined country in the world right now. Both sides have just put millions of landmines down. So he goes to Ukraine and teaches the Ukrainians far away from the combat, right? Like, he's not doing anything to further the combat. He's just helping people, like farmers. Their whole fields have been mined. So I'm helping him with that. He wrote a good book too called Tip of the Spear. And then my buddy Nate Wismer in town is a metal worker, and we're trying to raise money for him to do an art installation in the little town that we live in, Tumalo. So, and I was coaching track and cross country. I loved doing that. One thing that's not really known, and maybe even in the Hoosiers guys don't know this, but when I was younger, I was a very serious competitor in running. I was a miler. Back then it was the mile, not the 1500. So I competed nationally. Our cross country team won the national championship. I was the last scorer on our team. I came in 10th or 11th in the race. So I reconnected to that part of my life because I trained with a coach who was world class just through circumstances. Laszlo Tabori, this Hungarian guy who was an Olympic competitor and world class coach. He coached women that I trained with that set the world record in the marathon back then, Jackie Hansen. So it was really fun. The point is, it was really fun for me to connect back to this part of my life from so long ago. Like, I was focused. I wanted to be the fastest miler in the country, and I did it.
Wow, that's amazing. I was on a Steve Prefontaine kick, and
he was my hero.
Yeah,
I saw him race. He was my hero.
Yeah, talk about a guy gone too soon.
Sorry, yeah, and I worked with a guy in property management who's in the University of Oregon Hall of Fame, Mark Feig, and was teammates with Steve Prefontaine.
Wow!
I even found in my drawer like this 4-page poem that I had written when I was 11 about Steve Prefontaine, being so good. Like, he was so much fun to watch race.
Yeah, he had a
really
huge heart. There's so much I want to ask you, but for your sanity, I've tried to condense it a little bit.
Yeah.
The fact is that you worked with 2 iconic legends who have we've lost, right? We talk about Gene and Dennis, but the one thing I didn't know about when I did some research, and you don't have to say anything about this, you could say whatever you're comfortable with. I wasn't familiar with Kent Poole's story, and that was a little heartbreaking to read for the first time. He seemed like a really good guy that was just, like all of us, like we all go through our thing, and it's just so sad just to see that,
Yeah, very sad. Is there a question in there about
I just wanted to throw it out there because I don't know what you're comfortable talking about, so it's like I'm not going to make you answer
his son, I forget his son's name, but his surviving son, I think he had 2 children.
Yeah.
Has come to, like, we went in, the Pacers brought us to a basketball game a few years ago, and he came, and it was nice to talk with him. I think Kent, without divulging too much personal information, got caught in a situation where he came up a little bit short in, character wise. And like he was a high school basketball coach and apparently just like really liked and a good guy. And unfortunately, I don't think that he had the mental strength to deal with the dissolution or divorce that he was going through.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was related to. I think if he had to do it over again and maybe somebody in his life, I know the writer was close to him, Angelo Pizzo, would have had the opportunity to talk to him and go, divorce sucks, but take full accountability for your own behavior and put the pieces back together and focus on your kids and focus on what's good. He could have made it. Like, I just think it was the first time in his life maybe that he had really failed at something so much, And I've been divorced. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And I had a kid. I was a single dad. I had a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
So, I have empathy. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So that's all that I know. I mean, the other guys that saw him more over the years, I only saw Kent once after the movie. He came out to LA. He was thinking of trying to get his acting thing going and, get help from David Anspaugh and stuff. And that's the last time I saw him.
Yeah, he did one movie with David Anspaugh. It was the horses. I forget what it's called.
Oh, Fresh Horses.
Yes, he did one movie with Anspaugh, and shortly after that, like I just, the only reason I bring it up is, and it's none of my business. I was just curious and thank you for what you said. I was just stunned because I never knew about it. I was like, oh my God, that's such a tragedy. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's a giant hole in the team. I mean, we only had 8 guys.
Yeah,
team. So to lose one in that way was hard for sure.
Yeah. So you're hearing a lot of people talk about Gene. What was funny was I heard Bill Murray talking about how difficult Gene was on set and how he had this, like, he was a great actor with a good heart, but he was, hard to get along with. I'm like, Bill Murray just described Bill Murray. Like, he's talking about, Bill, that's your reputation. What are you talking about? Like, I get that's Gene's rep to some degree, but that's Bill Murray to a lot of degrees. But all this stuff you're hearing, David, what's your take on what people are saying?
Well, it's no secret that Gene worked in a certain way that was problematic for those around him sometimes. So if you ask me my opinion, was Gene difficult? Hell yeah, he was difficult. He was tough on the director and writer. And you can still see when David and Angelo talk about Gene, they still carry that with them because they were upbraided by Gene, and belittled and made to feel bad. But now it depends on how old I am when you ask me that question. How do I feel about Gene? When I was younger and acting, and it's the first movie I ever did, and some guy's kind of slapping you down a little bit, it doesn't feel good, and you're like, okay, that guy's uncool. I'm just going to avoid him. He's the star, so I can't do anything. If you ask me now when I'm 62 and, I've done 8 or 10 movies or whatever it is I did, I have a different opinion. Like, actors of his generation were known for being difficult and were given a lot of leeway to be difficult. So at the time we made Hoosiers, it's kind of hard to ask Gene, well, this is the way you did it when you made French Connection, and this is the way you did it when you made The Conversation with Francis Coppola, but now you need to be a nice guy when you're doing this movie, Hoosiers. Some people need to have some kind of conflict going to get their juices flowing to act. So I don't speak ill of the dead. It's no secret, though. Gene was not easy to deal with. He wasn't super friendly. But I also have to say, I'm a huge fan of his work. I think that guy is so amazingly talented, and his range for doing light comedy. Like, go check out his work in Young Frankenstein, where he plays like the blind monk having a cigar with the monster. and he lights the monster's finger on fire because he thinks it's the cigar. He's just done so much stuff in light comedy and intense drama. So I'm a huge fan. I don't have anything negative to say about Gene, but I also will say the truth. You know, he was a tough guy to deal with.
Was he harder on director David Anspaugh than he was Angelo, the writer? I'm just saying that.
It's hard to say. He was really tough on David. This is what you have to understand. David was coming from television. He had made his bones directing Miami Vice with Don Johnson at the height of it. And then his best buddy, his college roommate, wrote the script, and they were like, fuck it. If you want to make it, it's me and Angelo. That's it. No negotiation. Right? So I know he was hard on both of them, but David was more in the line of fire because David was the guy standing by the camera and the monitor. Angelo was always on set, but you know, kind of more floating in the background.
Yeah, I get the feeling that he and Hopper couldn't have been any more different in their approach and like how they treated you guys.
Yeah, yes. Like Dennis came out like, I will violate the confidence of some of the other boys, but we may have gone to a club where young ladies dance without their clothes. And Dennis came with us. You know, Gene would have never done that.
No.
Dennis played poker with us, you know, when in between stuff. And yeah, Dennis was like a breath of fresh air because all of a sudden it was like, okay, we know this dude from Easy Rider. Are we allowed to talk to him? Or, you know, is it like Gene where we can't really say much? I mean, he just dove right in. The first scene I ever saw him was like when I smash into that trophy case.
Yeah.
Like right before that, like when he walks onto the floor. And literally when he walked on the floor in the movie, that was the first time I ever saw him. Because I hadn't seen him come and arrive. I knew they were fussing, you know, but I had to be over and do my thing. So
you know,
David Dennis.
Yeah, and I have a few more questions about him. You know, they said that when the movie when it was done, that Gene, I think Gene saw the great writing, but he thought the movie was going to flop for a variety of reasons. Was that Dennis's attitude as well? Did Dennis have any faith in the movie?
No, Dennis at that point, happy to have a job, happy to get paid. It's more of a mainstream movie where he's just coming off Blue Velvet, where he played like a psychotic killer, and that's at that point that's where his career was, right? And he was brilliant in Blue Velvet. It was kind of funny because it came out the same year as Hoosiers, and he for sure thought that he would be nominated for Blue Velvet, and he wasn't. He was nominated for Hoosiers, and it was kind of like the level of work that he did in Blue Velvet was really, really good. But so no, Dennis was, you know, making money, acting in a mainstream movie, given a role that he normally wouldn't get. He was, you know, from what I could see, he was friendly and happy. He wasn't making any trouble. I mean, he had a reputation for just being shit-faced out of his mind when he worked. Like, I can point you to a movie where you can see it, Rumblefish, where he plays Mickey Rourke's dad. Watch this scene where Matt Dillon's dad. There's a scene between the three of them, like Matt Dillon, Mickey Rourke, and Dennis Hopper. And he's drinking, and there's some, you know, he's out there. He's totally shit-faced. He is high as a kite doing that. So, you know, he had changed. He had gotten sober by the time that he did Hoosiers because he had to check himself into rehab, and he was on death's door. I mean, it wasn't like he was doing a little bit. He was doing, I mean, you know, he was like drinking a fifth a day and cocaine, you know, an 8-ball of cocaine. Like, he was doing a lot of drugs.
Yeah, that's rough.
Good for him, though. He straightened out his life at the end.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: so when you guys go out and take in the scenery of the various clubs that he might have accompanied you with. How great is it to see him away from set like that and to spend time with him and to really just watch him unwind?
Yeah, it was fun because it makes you feel accepted. Like when the star guy says, "Yeah, come on, let's go hang out." Like it just makes you feel good. Like you're part of it. You know, when someone's giving you the cold shoulder, it doesn't feel so good. You know, like, and I think I've told a few stories, but the final scene, I don't know if you remember, but after the shot was made, our direction was to go find Gene in the crowd, right? So we did it. First shot, first take, amazing. Like, you know that story, right? Like the whole setup. That was spontaneous and real when the crowd came down. So we did what we were told. We go over to try and find Gene, and he's like, because remember the cameras are really far away, so they're not really seen close. Right?
Yeah.
And when we get to him, he kind of snarls at us under his breath and like with his teeth, so you can't see that his mouth is moving. And he's like, "Don't touch me! Get away from me!" Because we were gonna jump on him. Celebrate. So we were just like, "Screw this, man!" And we went like 10 or 15 feet away, and then we're jumping on each other, celebrating. So that's like kind of, you know, it's part of movie history now. But you know, I'm not mad at Gene for doing that. That's where he was in his life at that point. But you don't have to make a movie like that. Making a movie is hard, right? You don't have to do that. To find your edge.
I was listening to Angelo today. He was on a Sirius Radio, the NBA show they have with Brian Scalabrine in the morning, and he seemed to say that he said that, you know, the improvised line is "I love you guys," that Gene improvised that, but he also went on to say, David, that that he really did come to like you guys a lot by the time the movie unwrapped. Is that true?
Who, Gene did?
Yes. So
Gene, yes. Aside from that prickly part of his personality, like he tried to help Maris. Maris definitely wanted to come out to LA and pursue a career, and I think Gene helped him get an agent. And I don't want to paint this picture of him not having good moments and not being a nice guy.
You're not. Yeah, definitely.
Generally, just, you know, he's kind of, you know, guys like that. He's a little prickly.
Yes.
He's not warm and fuzzy. You're not going to go hug him.
Yeah.
Right.
He's from a different generation. I mean, guy was born in 1930. So he's how old when he makes Hoosiers? What is he?
He was in his 50s.
56, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I have two clips I want to play for you. One's like a 20-second one, and one's later in the interview. I think you'll enjoy that. I want to play this for you, then I want to get your feedback on something. Is it
okay?
Are you okay? All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Let me just put this up here. All right.
What's on your mind?
Well, Coach, what you're doing with my dad, I'm not seeing it.
Why not?
Because he's a drunk. He'll do something stupid.
When's the last time somebody gave him a chance?
You don't deserve a chance.
In that scene, David, what are you thinking when you're and how where was that was that midway through the shooting? Was that
that was actually the very first time that I ever stepped in front of a camera and had like something to say. Right.
Yeah.
I think we had shot a little bit of basketball or stuff, but that was really my first scene where like, okay, you're going to have to put your toes on that piece of tape on the floor, hit your mark, say your stuff, try not to hit any furniture, and don't embarrass yourself. It was hard. Gene did give me a really good note later on. You know, if you see, like, I was trying to communicate how painful and hard that was to have that conversation. So there's, I don't want to say quite a bit, but there's some acting going on. So when I did the scene in the cafe where I take my dad where I take Dennis Hopper out of the cafe.
Yeah.
Like, I was tired. It was late at night. They did what's called a day for night. So that was shot at night, right? Probably at like 9 o'clock at night, but they just light up the outside of the building and it looks like daytime when you see it. But the point is, I was tired. It was a long day, and now I had to do this. And so it was very simple. My approach was very simple. I just like said it, and I was tired. And Gene came up to me and he goes, "That was really nice and simple." Because that's what he favored in film acting. He said, theater actors want to use the whole palette and color all the colors. Sometimes in film acting, the best choice is just simple, one choice, hit it. Yeah. And so, it was nice. But yes, so when I see that scene, I just see like this scared boy, acting with Gene Hackman who didn't know anything about what he was doing, just trying to hang on. Really.
But David, I love Everett Flatch. He's he's my favorite player of them all for a lot of reasons, which we'll touch upon. But I don't know, you could see he's really frustrated. I don't buy that you're a nervous kid there. I'm a nervous actor there. I feel like it's a kid approaching a new coach, talking about how frustrated he is with his dad. Like this poor teenage kid it's a tough time being a teenager to begin with. Never mind having to babysit your father who never knows, who is always about and doing his thing. So I don't know. That's what I just thought that was a really powerful scene. It was a little moment, but a really big moment as far as, for you, for the scope of things. Yeah, it's a really great little scene, David.
So we shot that. Remember when Mars was shooting the baskets and Gene tried to recruit him?
Yeah.
That classroom that I did my scene was on the second floor. So when Mars was shooting that scene with Gene, I was actually in the classroom with some other crew and a couple actors watching the whole scene.
Oh, okay.
Which was an incredible scene because that's real. They never cut away. That's what's called a master shot.
Yeah.
And Mars made every single shot you see until the very end when he said, "Okay, you can be on the team or not. I don't care."
Yeah.
And then Mars missed the last shot. I mean, it was it gives you goosebumps, like how perfect that was for the scene. You could do that 10 times and never do it again exactly like that.
David, this movie, it's funny. I rewatch this movie all the time, and it's a masterpiece. Just the way it looks, the acting is unbelievable. It's just a masterpiece. You talk about that master shot. There's so many of those shots. There's so many of those moments. What was his rapport like, David, with Barbara? I heard that wasn't awesome.
No, that was not a good fit.
Yeah.
Barbara had her own issues. I had a huge crush on her.
Yeah.
From this movie she made with Peter O'Toole, The Stuntman.
Yeah.
And, but she thought her part was more pivotal than it was.
Right.
Right. And she was younger than Gene. He felt insecure about that age difference between him and Barbara. So she was unhappy too. So you pair two unhappy actors together. It's not like all of a sudden everyone's going to be happy. They're both going to be unhappy. Yeah. So, we didn't have much to do with her. She was sitting in the stands, more than she probably wanted to when we would film games. Essentially, she's kind of an extra, right? Oh, let's cut to the stand. We see Barbara.
Right.
That's if you're doing that and you're in her position, you're probably not the happiest camper. If that's how it feels like your role has evolved to being a secondary role. But if I learned a lot on that movie. And it's about the narrative. It's about driving the narrative forward. So if you're not the star, if your name's not Gene Hackman, anything that detracts from the narrative being pushed forward will tend to end up on the cutting room floor.
It's David, listening to you talk, they couldn't have had three different attitudes between Barbara, Gene, and Dennis. Three completely different approaches.
And wildly different people.
Yes.
Very different people. So it was interesting. But at the end of the day, it all It all worked out.
Is that true?
And the name of the cinematographer who shot it was a guy, Fred Murphy, who was big back in that era. He also shot Trip to Bountiful, but it was very unpleasant to shoot the basketball scenes, because if you go back and look, and you'll see particularly in our home gym, the light will filter through the windows and you'll see the light coming down onto the court.
Yeah.
Okay, the way they achieve that is they take heavy smoke, like incense. It smells like stinky incense, and literally fill the gym so it looks like dust when it's filmed, and the light going through the dust. But try running up and down in that stuff.
Yeah.
So Fred was like, okay, Fred, really? Let's just chill on the smoke today, baby.
Yeah, he did. I tell you
but
what,
he made beautiful images.
Yeah, inside and out. I mean, he conquered that, and the outside images are like stunning.
Yeah,
he made it look. Is that true? Gene dove into his line 15 minutes before they shot. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. And think about it. It makes sense. Okay, now you're a guy in your mid-50s. He, at that point, has been acting in movies for 25 years.
Yeah.
Been on stage. Like, he needs a little juice. He needs a little excitement. He wants to be on that edge. So he's not gonna do what younger actors do, which is learn all your lines, go in your hotel room, stare at yourself in the bathroom mirror, and say your stuff. As Tom Berenger said, you give your best performance in the hotel bathroom later that night.
That's true.
I watched him do it with the pregame, that one big speech he gave us. I forget, before one of the important games, he gave us a big speech in the locker room.
Yeah.
I watched him. It was like 5 minutes to go. He goes, "Hold on, give me a minute." He walked off to the corner, and you see him saying his stuff. And then he did it, and he was really good. I was like, this is going to be fun to watch. Like, I hope he fucks up. I just want to see it,
Yeah.
And he nailed it. It was great.
Yeah. You know what's crazy, though, and I think I brought this up the last time we spoke, was the alternatives to play Norman Dale are insane.
Yes.
Burt Reynolds, for those listening, Burt Reynolds, Jack Nicholson, and Robert Duvall. I'm sorry, they're all great in their own way. They are not Norman Dale. No,
it's particularly, I don't know if you've spoken with Angela or David, but they tell a funny story about Burt Reynolds. He was kind of like the number one guy out of the gate. Like, the money people go, yeah, if you get Burt Reynolds, you got a movie. So they got to go to Burt Reynolds and talk him up and try and hook him. And David Anspaugh, like in the middle of the meeting, is going fairly well. It's at Burt Reynolds' house. Said, the thing is, Burt, we can't do that little, like that little wink and smirk at the camera that you like to do. We can't do that for this. He got so pissed, he kicked him out of the house. So that was the end of Burt Reynolds.
Yeah. I can't get over. I can't get over those casting choices. So let me ask you this. Your character, Everett. So for those listening, and they know who he is, but for a couple of reminders here, he's an awesome teammate. He's dealing with dad's addiction. The forgiveness he has for his father in my favorite scene in the entire movie, the hospital scene. It's just, you're so good in that. He's tough as hell. There's a good chance that if we followed Everett's story after this movie, he would have been a phenomenal dad too. Like, how do you see Everett Flatch? Because I see him as this huge-hearted person he was a Hoosier from day one, never stopped, and he probably had more reason to stop than any of them. And he did it. And
yeah, that's an interesting take. I never projected into the future of what I thought would happen to him. I felt like he was a kid that put on sort of a tough exterior because he had been teased a little bit by teammates too. Your dad's a drunk, your dad's this.
That shitty small town atmosphere where everybody knows your business.
Everybody, and that is true, by the
Yes.
way. When you go to those little towns, everybody is up in your business.
Yep.
So, but where I think Everett would land, I don't think he would stray very far from the tree. I think he'd be in Hickory or close by, and he might be like a teacher or a coach.
Yeah, and he would have moved in with his dad like they promised in the hospital. Perhaps his dad would have lived in the house with the family. I don't know. Maybe I have no life and I think about things too much, but I think it would have been a really sweet story, David, had they, if the what if, right? The what if. But
yeah. That was a fun scene to shoot. So that was much later in the movie, and that was like a separate location. I forget. I think they had built out that hospital room in some abandoned building or something. I forget. All I know is that when we did it, like Dennis was doing some stuff and there was a nurse, if you remember, sitting in the room. She doesn't say anything, but she's sitting there.
Yeah.
And so they were fiddling with the camera and doing all that. And it takes a long time. And I knew this had to be emotional. So I was in like kind of just a storage room or something off to the side, pacing around, trying to work myself up, but not too much, because in movies, right, Derek, you got to time it. Yeah. I don't do any good if I hit the emotion perfectly in the storage room. No one sees it.
Yeah.
And so the trick is, can you deliver when they say action? That's the trick. Yeah. And the best film actors, like I'm really impressed with this young kid, Timothy Chalamet. I think he's amazing. He has it. You just let him go and he delivers. It's not as easy as it looks, by the way. Like, it's not as easy to be Gene Hackman. He makes it look effortless, right? It's not easy to do what Timothy Chalamet does. It's not easy to create a full-bodied character. It's harder. It's easier to do like the little parts like I did, but also harder in the sense that you don't really have a lot of opportunity to delineate your character, to like make a choice that will show who your character is, because you're in this little box, right? Like you have a little box, you gotta serve the story. But that was a fun scene to shoot. Dennis was phenomenal. A partner, like acting, think of acting like tennis. I do my thing, I hit the ball to you. I need you to be paying attention and hit the ball back to me, so that I can then hit it back to you. That's what acting is. If it only goes one way, right? Like when you're off camera and you're not doing anything, you're not helping. And people do that all the time, by the way. Yeah. When I made Platoon, because they had to get Charlie in makeup, in one of my scenes, I was acting to a piece of tape.
Wow.
That's just like, that's the way it goes. Okay, I'm gonna act my ass off to this X on a whiteboard.
That's
it's Charlie. Now Charlie doesn't act to an X in a whiteboard. I'm down in the mud with mud all over me, for him, because I think that's the way it should be. But again, when you're at the bottom of the food chain like I was, like, you don't get to make those decisions.
No, and what makes that hospital scene work as my favorite, like you said, it's the way you approach it, and it's such a genius way to approach it too. Like, in the amount of forgiveness that Everett has when he should be pissed as hell and he's not, that makes it so much more emotional. Him saying, Dad, any other reaction, the one you had was the perfect road. It was the only road.
It's interesting. The first take, I was blubbering. Woo! And even there was a state trooper, an Indiana state trooper, who was in the room, maybe as an extra or just on the set, I forget. He like comes up to me, he goes, "Man, that was really good." And then the second take, which is the one they used, which is the one you like and the one I happen to like too, all that emotion is out of me, but it's still present. You still feel it, but it's not overwhelming. I'm not telling you how to feel, right? Like when you cry, you're kind of putting the audience, like, this is how we want you to feel. But the way that I chose to do it the second time, and I want to say it was more out of maybe fatigue from crying so much on the first one that I got lucky, But a lot of people felt the way you did, where I kind of underplayed it and allowed that scene to breathe a little bit.
Yeah, and think about all the times that Everett is not, I don't want to say betrayed by his dad, but how many times he's got to either save his dad or his dad kind of embarrasses him, right? What,
Right.
5 off the top of my head without counting? 5, 6?
Yeah, a lot.
The gym scenes, the coffee shop scene. There's so many. There's a couple other scenes I just want to highlight for those listening. Going into the trophy case was a phenomenal scene. Meeting the coach for the first time, I loved. When everyone's chanting Jimmy's, that wasn't the first time, but when everyone's chanting Jimmy's name and he says, we're talking about what I was hoping you'd support who's here. Never mind who's not.
That was a fun scene to shoot. That was Morris's scene, obviously. We were in like a little vestibule, so we didn't have much to do. So we were just like goofing off, having a lot of fun. I remember that night in that little vestibule. And there was one shot where, like, I don't know if they used it in the movie, I can't remember, but Morris walks a long time from the outside through the vestibule into the room where all the people are. And, that was our time to be on camera, our only time. But it was just a lot of fun. And I thought Morris did a good job. Something like, Coach stays, I stay. Coach goes, I go. Was that one?
Yeah. Well, no, that's one of the ones, but it was the one where he's introducing the entire, or they're introducing the entire team to the gym.
Oh, I know yes.
And everyone's like, we want Jimmy. We want Jimmy. And then like Norman Dale is like pissed. He's like, I was hoping you'd support who is here. Never mind who's not here. So, but that scene was coming up too. So you answered both.
But the scene you're talking about, I remember that scene. So we're all in this doorway and we come out one by one to the layup line, right? And do a layup and then go over to stand in front of Gene. And I don't have much to say about that scene other than, I really don't. I mean, it was just a scene. If you have a question, you can ask me, but I don't have much to. It was, for us, it wasn't that much.
Yeah, the second most emotional scene I think that you were in is, and I think it's. Do you think that the scene where, Shooter finally gets a chance to coach, where Gene gets, or where Norman Dale gets tossed on purpose, where Shooter and he does it, so Shooter gets this moment. And it's one of the best scenes in the movie. And you kind of say, Dad, what do you think they're going to run here, or something to that effect?
Yeah.
How much do you love that scene, and what a pivotal scene, because I feel like you see all the reactions between Everett and Shooter are of the cringe or the sadness or emotional. Finally, this father and son have this beautiful moment where they could just both enjoy each other. I don't know, man. There's something really
that was a good scene. Really fun to shoot. With Dennis, I remember there was a lot of joking around. Didn't he say something about the picket fence?
Yes, run the picket fence at him. Yeah.
I would think Dennis made up some part of that or something. Like he altered it a little bit and made it more his own. It was just a very different experience working with Dennis as opposed to working with Gene, because he brought, you could joke and laugh and then do your business. That particular scene, like I haven't seen the movie as much as you. I don't go back and look at it. Yeah. It's hard for me to remember and think like about the scene or what I was doing necessarily. Right. All of them 40 years later, some of the bigger scenes I remember, and one scene that got cut that was a huge scene was, what was the movie about the Amish kid? Remember the Amish kid, Witness, with Harrison Ford?
Yep.
Okay, and remember there's a scene where Harrison Ford, this big city detective, goes out to help him build the house, and the whole community's eating lunch at a big table.
Yes.
Well, we had a scene exactly like that in a cornfield. And we were running around the cornfield all day, tackling each other. And, they were doing it. And then they had this big scene where the whole community's at the table. And then Witness came out before Hoosiers, and it was a huge hit. And they were like, we can't use this scene. It's exactly like the one in Witness. So, but that was a really fun scene to shoot, a really fun scene to be in. I did witness Barbara being a little mean to like you got to understand, you're doing it in the middle of Indiana in a small little town, corn farmers, and probably not some of them or a lot of them have never gone anywhere but their little town.
Right.
Which is fine.
Right.
That's okay. Everyone makes their choice.
Yeah.
And Barbara said something like really rude to a farmer. I was like, it really bummed me out. I was like, that's so uncool.
Yeah.
But my participation in that scene was I wanted to chew tobacco. So there was a farmer on set, and he had like one of those blocks, you know, like the gnarliest, heaviest kind. I'm not a tobacco chewer.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So I put that thing in, and I'm chewing it. And then by the time they were going to shoot like a little scene with me and someone else, I forget, I started feeling really nauseous from the tobacco. So when we did the scene, I had to spit it out and put like a piece of paper or something in my mouth to simulate it. And then I was like, I'm never chewing tobacco again for the rest of my life. I felt so bad for a couple hours. But that was a really fun scene to shoot because we were just running around these cornfields, literally playing tackle football because they had bought a cornfield for the movie.
Yes.
So, you know, even though it did irritate Kent because Kent was a corn farmer and he was like, it just pisses me off to see all this good corn being wasted like this.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, hold on. Boom! Tackle.
How do you think, from the scene that I showed you, which is kind of in the beginning of the movie, throughout the whole movie, what do you think Everett thinks of Norman Dale? You think he likes him from the beginning?
Yeah, he likes him.
Yeah.
He liked him from the beginning. Yeah. Because he's a polar opposite of his dad.
Right. He's got his
shit
organized.
Together. He's focused. He has a plan. He's going to push you to get the best out of you.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was different than the other kids who were coaching or questioning the coach in the movie, right? Like, no, I was on board. I was full, yeah.
So one of the last things I want to do with you was, do you know who Bill Simmons is?
Yes, of course.
He's a big sports guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a ton of podcasts. So his big thing is calling Norman Dale a bad coach. I want to play you the last clip. And then I want it's about a minute and a half if you're okay with that.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I want to see what you think of this because this kind of made me angry a little bit, and I have a rebuttal to this, and I want to get your take on it.
Okay. Coach Dale, game coach. Are we sure he was good? I'm just going to give you some nuggets. The pass 4 times before every shot rule is just inane. It's just illogical. It's stupid. No, it's just awful. He hired the town drunk as his assistant.
Me? You want me?
He played with 4 guys just to prove a point to his guard.
Where are you going?
In the game.
Sit down.
What do you mean? We're gonna have 5 out there.
Sit down.
Which almost causes a riot. I mean, at some point, you already proved your point. You benched the guy. Now you're going to play with 4 guys? Like, what point are we proving now? He got kicked out of 3 games during the season that we saw. It might have even been more.
Submitted to the state for review by one of the officials. Yeah.
Drunk shooter wanders on the court during a crucial playoff game, and Coach Dale says, that's okay. He's an assistant coach. Just immediately he gives a technical. Don't say anything, Coach Dale. Just let the town drunk get pulled off. And then he goes over to Flatch. He goes, you stay in the game. It's like, maybe call timeout, let him regroup. They're down 16-6 in the title game, getting their ass kicked. All the Hickory guys have to point out to coach, like, hey, Jimmy could probably score if we set him some picks. He's like, oh, good idea. Let's do that. And then the title winning shot doesn't set up Jimmy. He runs the play for Merle. State championship on the line. All the guys are bummed out. And then finally Jimmy, who's like a mute, finally has to go, hey.
I'll make it.
I'll make it. And Coach Dale's like, oh, yeah, you're right. You're 14 for 16 in the movie so far. Yeah, but you should probably take the final shot. Like, are we sure Coach Dale was a good coach?
The evidence stacked that way is pretty overwhelming. You know,
didn't play Strap enough. Strap's on the bench rotting away. Guy's an incredible banger.
Yeah, develop your depth. I mean, he's a terrible GM. I mean, immediately first thing he does is start kicking out wings that look switchable. Those guys look like they're pretty switchable guys.
He's kicking out his 3-and-D wings.
You know what it feels a little bit like? A little Joe Torre-ish. Because if you watch Torre every day, you'd be like, oh, great. I'm going to have 7 arms blown out in the bullpen. We're never going to make any adjustments. Granted, the team was better than everybody else most of the time. But what was Torre great at? Torre was great at getting everybody rowing in the same direction. And even though it was a little tough and abrasive at first for Hackman, I think that his greatest gift as a coach was getting everybody rowing in the same direction. But I don't want to sit here and call him one of the all-time greats when you run through that resume like that. That's tough.
Yeah, if we were on First Take talking about coach the next day, there would have been a whole segment of like, of course he.
What do you think, David? On, off?
Well, first of all, he's just having a laugh.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
So,
yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think his analysis about Jimmy is probably correct, but they had to create a dramatic moment, right? It is a movie. So of course, he's not going to be the first option to take the shot because we need a little bit of drama.
Right.
I think he's way off base at the beginning about whether he's a good coach or not. Remember, this is a movie about redemption.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's at the bottom of the barrel, who's an who had anger issues and
hit a kid
and had all these things go wrong, and his career was in the shit. That's the only reason why he's here.
Yeah.
There's no one else that will hire him.
Yeah.
He got lucky because his old buddy, the singer, Sheb Woolley.
Yes.
Very cool guy.
The athletic director, yes, hired him. Yeah.
Hired him. So, but again, he's just doing it, for a laugh. Do I think Norman Dale was a good coach? I do. I think he was a good coach because he had a lot stacked against him. He had a town. And remember, the 4-pass thing, he's totally wrong on that. He said he was just trying to break the idea of how the team functioned in the past, which was throw it to Jimmy and let Jimmy shoot.
Right.
And because he's the best player. And that worked however well it worked, but they didn't win the championship, did they?
Great point.
You can say, is he a good coach? Well, he won the championship.
Yeah.
Now, what I read, I think yesterday or something in some article was that I think that Milan, who's the people who really won the championship, that the movie is based on.
Right.
I read that they were favored to win the championship game.
Wow.
So again, that's dramatic license, right?
Yeah. So I like what Ryan Russillo, who's the other guy, he said some of what I'm going to tell you now. First of all, he's a great, like you said, great recruiter, right? Does a great job. And all these teams, and Bill Simmons is an NBA guy, so he knows the importance of culture, what culture is, right? So he's a culture guy. I'd rather have a culture guy than an X's and O's expert. And I don't think, it's clear that Norman Dale knows the game. He spends his life around it. He clearly does. First of all, he keeps calling Shooter the town drunk, which kind of gets and I get it. He's having fun with the movie. Yeah. However, Shooter, he might be the town drunk, but he's also the most knowledgeable basketball person in the entire movie.
Right.
He knows what Norman Dale did in his earlier career. He knows the history of Hickory. He knows everything. So that being said, giving this guy a shot is pretty goddamn redeemable. 1, 2, you're giving a guy how many people over the years have been given a shot, NBA, sports, movies, whatever, when they've had substance abuse issues and they've come to shine and find their calling in a field. So I think, and don't forget, Norman Dale is really hard on your dad in the movie, but he's putting his head in the water. He's like, you promised me you'd be so he's doing this guy. I don't want to say a favor, but he also knows this guy's potential, right, David?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, who else was he going to choose? Remember, he's in a tiny little farming town.
Right.
It's not like, assistant coaches, aside from the boys in the barbershop, right? Who you probably don't want helping because they're going to be like more the same. Yeah, I don't have any problem with he did it. I think he did a great job.
Yeah, and Jimmy, who is not playing without him, and he's smart enough to listen to his players at the right time, which is a very smart thing to do. And like you said, I never thought about this, David. The 4 passes were to break up the way the team operated before.
Exactly.
It was to throw a wrench in the system, saying, no. This is we're not just giving it to Jimmy and everybody else get out of the way, right?
And to that point, he didn't say that at the end of the season. We had an offense to run. We were running the offense.
Right.
He didn't tell us, keep passing it 4 times. I'm going to take you out. You didn't pass 4 times. No, He just needed to break us at the beginning to build his culture and foundation for success.
Yeah.
That was the point of it.
And David, when you look at the end of the movie, these guys would have run through a wall for this guy.
Yeah.
They would have if he said go kill somebody, they would have done it. Like that's where these guys were when it came to Norman Deal by the end of this movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's the journey of the movie, right? Redemption for everybody. Redemption for Shooter, redemption for me, redemption for Jimmy, redemption.
Yeah,
right?
I
Don't
totally
quit when the chips are down.
Yeah. And Bill had this thing, this like draft, like so he had a bunch of guys. It's hard to explain if you don't follow. Like, so he had this like thing where you could choose a basketball player or a coach. He was drafting like an owner, a team based on basketball related movies. I think you were drafted by one of the guys. I'm not 100% positive. I think you, Everett, was drafted by one of these guys saying, people drafted like, Ray Allen from what's the movie with Denzel? He's oh shit, what's that basketball movie with Denzel? And,
oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Jesus.
It was Spike Lee directed it.
Oh my god,
where Denzel Washington played the father who was in jail. And Ray Allen was really good in that movie.
He got game. I cannot believe I forgot that. Yeah. So somebody would take him. Somebody would draft another player like Will Ferrell's character in another movie. Like, so they would take different players and draft them. And I think you were one of the guys drafted. So Bill Simmons really.
Well, let me give you a summary of my skill set on the basketball court because I did play for a long time, just pickup ball, right? And in pickup ball, it's mostly about the best players are going to shoot most of the time. Nobody does the dirty work. But I was never a very good shooter. But I was a hard worker, and I would do all the dirty work. Rebound, set screens for the good shooters, pass the ball. I was a team guy. But my offensive ability was definitely limited.
Yeah. When you look back at the clips I showed you or the stuff we've been talking about, granted, it's a movie. We get it. It's a sports movie. But it's also a big part of your life in a place where you shine so brilliantly. Like, do you look at it as like the most wonderful time of your life as far as what you achieved professionally at that time? Because like you're looking at yourself like this kid who just did a phenomenal job. And everyone talks about, and this is the other perception that I want to I want to answer a little bit. I know you said this before. Everyone said, oh, it's these kids that never acted. That's not true when it came to you. You were an actor coming into this, right?
Yeah, but I had never done anything professionally. That was
you had training, though.
Yes,
though, right?
I had like 2 years of acting class. Yeah, I wasn't like I knew the language. I knew how to approach it, that the way that I was taught, for sure. Yes.
Yeah, yes. So at least you had that. And for those listening who may have not heard our first interview, you definitely were in many movies. Bobby in Bull Durham was a very classic character, right? Tiptree and Empire of the Sun, and then obviously Tex that you've mentioned in Platoon. Dude,
you want to know the first movie that I ever got cast in, and I couldn't do it because I got Hoosiers. Very famous movie, and Charlie Sheen ended up doing the part.
Oh,
it was a John Hughes movie.
The one where he gets Ferris Bueller's
Day Off. I got the part of that delinquent kid in the police station.
Oh
Charlie
my
fucked
God.
up. Charlie fucked up that scene. He did it like I'm so cool, right? That character was not cool. That character was quirky, not cool. He's the opposite of cool. He wasn't trying to be cool. He was just a stoned out, sort of funny, guy trying to hit on that girl in the police station. When I read that for that part, and I had never had a job, and I'll tell you the story. So when I walked in for the callback to meet John Hughes, right, because I had done good in the first one,
right,
I came in as my perception of the character. And so when I walk in, I said something to him. I didn't say hello or something. And I was just like, hey, dude. And he goes, no. That's nice to meet you, Mr. Hughes. And then I'm like, whatever. And that I had him hooked right then. And Jennifer Grey, who was in the movie, right? She was auditioning with me, but I didn't really know who she was. So she was totally being great. And I was just like staring at her the whole time, fascinating, because I thought she was like a casting assistant. I was like, whoa, check out this casting assistant. She's totally getting into this, which was perfect for the scene.
Right.
And then I did it and I left. He ran out of the building to come get me and said, hey, you got your first movie. And I was so stoked, so excited. I called my agent right away. I got the movie. And they're like, whoa, slow down. Because every actor says that. This is the funny, dirty little secret in movie auditioning.
Yeah.
You go in, you do your business, you leave, you call your agent. I killed it. I did great. And then the agent was like, no, you didn't do that. So actors. So when I said that, they were like, hold on. And they called up and they were like, yeah, you did get your first movie. And then I ended up getting Hoosiers. And that part in Ferris Bueller's Day Off was only one day.
Right.
So like Hoosiers was 12 weeks is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I still tried when I was in Indiana to get like them to, they were shooting in Chicago. I was close by. Like, let's try and make this happen. But once they got Charlie Sheen, they were probably like, yeah, fuck this kid. We want Charlie.
There was no way you could have made it happen. Like they wouldn't have let you go. Like if you said, hey, I got to go do this thing. Like
no,
even if
you can do that if you're like Barbara Hershey or Dennis Hopper or Gene Hackman. Like you can get that kind of leeway. You can't do that when you're at the bottom of the call sheet, bro.
Yeah.
No. You are a hired hand. The thing about acting is you got to show up when you're told. You got to wear what you're told. And you got to perform in a way that kind of what you're told, unless you're a little bit more of a big shot.
Yeah.
So that was part of the reason why I stopped acting. I just not a guy that I like being in charge. I don't like being told what to do.
Right.
That's not my thing. But to make a movie, it's a collaboration between 100. Everyone has to contribute, right? Everyone.
Right.
All the crew, everybody.
Right.
So, you got to be up for participating in someone else's vision. That's really what you're doing, right?
Yeah. So even if you're 100%. So even if like Gene felt that way through the whole movie, it's a reflection on him too. So in some ways, it's up to him to like some of these kids who never acted before, like he's got to like kind of, and I thought I read this, that he did coach them up as far as acting goes.
One time. He was really nervous before the movie started. Like, these kids have never acted. They're going to embarrass me. So we had one acting class that lasted like an hour. That's it.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So, that's kind of a myth. Oh, Gene was helping me. No, he wasn't. He wasn't helping us. Gene was all about Gene. And fair enough. Like, when you're an actor, and it used to bother me back then because you see, it's not just Gene. Okay.
Yeah.
all leading actors, really, the ones that I've come across, are primarily concerned with one thing: me.
Yeah.
About me.
Yeah.
They want everyone to be great and they want the movie to be great, but the first concern is, am I great?
Right.
And that really bothered me. But, you know, that's kind of the way it is. Every actor has to stand on their own 2 feet and deliver excellence in the way that they deliver it, if that makes sense.
100%. When you see those old clips, do you get sentimental or goosebumps?
Yeah, sometimes, depending on my mood.
Yeah.
You know, you got to understand, this is almost 40 years ago now.
I get it.
I've lived a lot of life. I've lived a lot of life. Do I look back on it fondly? Yes.
Yeah.
But am I done talking about it too? Yes. Like I turned down, I don't know, my friend made a documentary about Platoon called Brothers in Arms.
Yeah.
And, you know, a few years ago for the 35th, I think it was the 35th anniversary. I don't know, maybe 30th. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And now they're going to show it at some film festival in Phoenix or Flagstaff. And I'm like, I'm not going. I have no desire. I'm not doing it. You're it, Darek. This is my last public experience. Put it in the vault, baby.
Yeah. So let me phrase it another way. So, like, I don't think I have videotape of me in my late teenage years. Like, I don't have. Yeah. I wish I did. So I guess a poorly worded way before. I'll say it this way this time. Is it like you're seeing? I don't want to say it's like a home video, but it's you're seeing yourself in another part of your life. Like I wish I had that to some degree.
That guy, like my relationship to that guy is kind of like your relationship to that guy. He's not me anymore.
Right.
He's that guy.
Right. Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
Who did those things way back then.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it. So I'm happy to talk about anything. Like I don't have an emotional attachment to that guy.
Right.
Any more than you do from your teenage years, right?
Right.
We all do, but we don't live in it. The weird thing about film is that it allows people like you, like a fan or a podcast or whatever,
right,
to keep it alive. But for me, it's kind of a dead thing that I did. And I'm, you know, I get one fan letter a week, right?
Yeah.
I just signed like 20 cards. The only time I won't sign is if someone just puts in a letter and doesn't include their own envelope or doesn't give me anything to sign.
Yeah.
Like one guy wanted me to sign like 100 things that I had to go out and get. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But if you send me, people have made things, and I know the other boys have signed like some things that people make that they want signed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Best merchandise. If anyone in your audience is looking, there are two guys who are in the autograph business, Nick and Harlan. Like they do it at a really high level, right?
Yeah.
And remember the final shot of the movie, it goes up to the picture of us in front of the championship trophy.
Oh, right here. I got that on the screen. Yeah, right there. Yeah.
So they printed out like 500 of those, and Gene signed, because their whole thing was, sorry to break it to you boys, but you're just the fill-in. Only the people really want Gene's autograph. Okay, fair enough, makes sense. Yeah. But so he signed it, and we all signed it in front of our image. The only one missing is Kent. So if you can track down those guys, they're probably going to start selling them now. They just put them in a vault.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you're a big fan of the movie, it's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
The only thing I have from the movie is my game jersey. One of them, the red one, not the white ones we wore, just the red one. Well, and the story behind that was I gave it to Wade's brother, like right when the movie wrapped. I'm like, you just wrapped it. It wasn't a popular movie. We thought, whatever. I gave my letter jacket to one of the cheerleaders, Laura Robling, and I gave that jersey to Wade's brother. And then we went to the Indiana Pacer game, and they gave us a jersey, and Wade was like, yeah, my brother has your jersey if you want to get it back. So I traded him. I gave him the Hoosiers one that the Pacers made us for that one, and I framed it and put it upstairs in my house. But that's about it. I don't have a ton of stuff.
Do you ever see it this way, David? Do you ever see that your work in this movie and other movies, but just because we're talking about Gene and Hoosiers, has changed a lot of lives? Kids that want to play basketball, kids that have maybe had a tough time with their father or family, and your work. And I get you're a different person now, but that your work has impacted so many lives for that 40-year span. And
I get that the movie is super popular.
But you're a big part of that, David. It's not just like Barbara and Gene.
Well,
that's the way I see it. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that, but how do I feel about that? I feel good. So when I coached track, the athletic director at the school I was coaching with is a basketball guy.
Yeah.
And he really wanted to coach high school basketball. So he ended up leaving, and he is now a high school basketball coach. But you see the sparkle in his eye when he found out, oh, that's the kid from Hoosiers. That's a kid from Hoosiers. Not the kid, but a kid from Hoosiers.
Yeah.
Do I get a kick out of that? Yeah, because that's making someone else smile. How can you not get a kick out of that? But that's pretty much where it ends.
Yeah.
I haven't had someone come to me other than, it's not true. I guess you get I keep the fan letters for my oldest daughter, although I don't know if she wants this last batch, and then I'll stop keeping them. But yeah, you will get some letters where someone's like, this means so much to me and my brother, and it's our favorite movie and this and that. So I'm affected by it, but not in the way that I think that you're suggesting.
Gotcha. You mentioned Timothy Chalamet earlier. Do you watch a lot of shows? Do you watch a lot of movies, David?
No, I don't. But I'm a Netflix guy.
Yeah.
So even if there's a movie that I want to see, I'll wait till eventually it ends up on Netflix.
Yeah.
Or Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And so that's how I came to Timothy Chalamet. I'd heard about him, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not a huge avid moviegoer. But I was just like, I'm going to watch Dune. And those were really good movies.
Really good, yeah.
Really good. Yeah. And the acting, I studied acting with Josh Brolin before he became famous. And I was like, fuck, that kid is super talented, man. I would hire that kid in a heartbeat. Just because he's so grounded. He's so real. And he could have been a dick. The son, his father being a TV star, all that. Just down to earth. And you see his career. I think that guy's an amazing actor and has done amazing work.
Yeah. What's refreshing about Timothy Chalamet is you get the impression that he's a pretty good guy off camera too.
I saw a 60 Minutes interview. I agree with you. I got that impression. Okay, he's young. He's still trying to figure it out, and the world spotlight is on him. Not an easy thing to do.
Right. And then you see somebody with Leo DiCaprio, who's got a mask on. He's hiding places. It's okay, all right, dude, we get it. You're popular, and
right.
But yeah. So, David, I really appreciate you coming back on.
Yeah.
I'll say it one last time. I am so grateful for your work. You created so many memories in my life with my own father, and I don't know. I can thank you for a lifetime, but I don't.
Thank you, Darek. And I appreciate talking with you is easy. Again, this is the last time for me, so enjoy it. But talk to the other guys. If you want to talk to Steve Holler or Brad Long, they will talk all day long.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of people were going to Brad for comments. TMZ, I think I saw. TMZ.
I saw that one. I didn't watch it, but because I've heard everything Brad has to say. But he's Steve and Brad are articulate, smart, well-spoken. They have opinions.
Yeah.
But they're not going to tell you. The only difference between them and me is they're not going to tell you the real stuff about Gene or anything.
Yeah.
They're not going to tell you that.
Yeah. So in your spare time, did you what do you do? Hiking? What do you do to get away from everything?
I ski. I'm going to take up Nordic skiing, which is the flat skiing.
Nice.
Mountain bike, and do workout, but just not a ton, just a little bit of stuff.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
to
Dave,
stay fit.
yeah, you look great, man. Like if you
Thank
said
you.
to me, guess your age, I never would have. I would have been way off. Like
Yeah.
yeah, you got to. I feel like the good part about that too is like I don't look like it, but I run every day, and mentally it really clears my head. It's like
Yes, 100%. I
You
walk
know?
too. I walk
Yeah.
like 3 times a week because I can think. You get the endorphins, going, and you can do a lot of good thinking when you do that.
Yeah, it's so dead on. Man, I wish you nothing but the best. And again, thank you for this. It's
All
very
right.
appreciated. Have a
Have a
wonderful
great
night.
day.
Yeah, take care of yourself.
All right. Bye-bye.